Well, this episode of Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast has a theme song. While he's a big rock drummer, he's got golden fingers and he's loved everywhere he goes. He drums about beauty and he drums about truth. Hey. Jesse Kaufman, gun stock maker, engraver, and rock band drummer. Welcome to Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ron. It's a pleasure to be here and talking to you. You were prepared a lot better than I was.
Well, as soon as I knew I was going to have you on, that song for some reason popped into my head. So I had to run with that. Hey, let me introduce you a little bit more, Jesse. Ladies and gentlemen, this fellow we have on today, he and I actually almost grew up together. We just didn't know it at the time. But we're both a couple of country boys from South Dakota. And Jesse just had a lot more talent than I did. I was ahead of him. I sort of plowed the way, and it made it a little easier for him. But
don't forget the looks, too. Don't forget the looks.
Yeah, right. He's a better looking guy than I am, too. So what are you going to do?
I don't know.
Here's the thing. Jesse popped out of this little farm back there in South Dakota and became a rock drummer for what, like 10 years, Jesse?
Yeah, a little bit more.
A little more than that.
Yep. I think I played music for 14 years.
14 years. But he's also the South Dakota State trap shooting champion one time at least. All right? And
in 03. In 03, I broke 100 straight doubles.
Yeah, and then he became an incredible rifle stock maker. And then when he got bored with that, using his artistic talents, which obviously he has plenty of, he thought he would take up engraving. And he is now well on his way to becoming one of the most appreciated, recognized, best gun engravers on the planet. And he is really dedicated to his work. This is going to be a fun interview because this gentleman is a real deal, and he's the honest deal, and he's enthusiastic. He just loves his work. So, Jesse, you are located where now?
I'm in Sturgis, South Dakota.
Motorcycle mania.
Yep. Motorcycle mania.
But you probably don't get into motorcycles too much.
No, I used to have a little BMW years ago, but I thought, well, geez, if I have a wreck and hurt my hands or something, maybe I better just get rid of the motorcycle.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
I did.
Right. So, Right now you are so dedicated to engraving firearms. You're mostly doing firearms. You do some knives too, I suppose?
Yeah, now and again, but really the next year and a half or more is all solid guns.
Yeah.
It's just gun after gun.
Well, what I think most people will find interesting, at least I do, is that we all come to this because we're hunters, I think. You were a hunter as a kid, and that's where your interest in firearms got started, right?
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. Dad was an old regular guy, a farmer. He had a Winchester Model 70 and a Model 12 and a 94.
There you go.
That's what I grew up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to ask you if you did any jackrabbit hunting back there.
Oh, yeah. With the with the American Legion, we would have those big rabbit hunts on Sunday afternoons.
Yeah.
I got in on the tail end of that. You would have gotten in on more of that than I would have. You're just a little bit older than I am. But, yeah, we used to get 40, 50 guys rounded up a section and walk towards the middle. Total gun safety on that.
Oh, yeah.
And
everybody
we'd shoot.
But
it's amazing nobody got hurt.
I know it. It's crazy. There by the grace of God, I think is what all that was about.
Yeah. Yep, you're right.
Yeah. When I was
fun.
a kid, those big group hunts like that, I wasn't too crazy about. I only did one of them. I preferred to just go out with my buddies and myself or something, and we would hike those fields all day. Yeah. Pot them with 22s and such. Well, listen,
it was so fun growing up in it.
Yeah. Did you hunt pheasants too? You had to have hunted pheasants.
Oh, yeah. I grew up doing that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, when did you get into trap shooting? Because for me, it was like, I'm not going to waste a shell shooting at a little clay target. I'm saving them for the birds.
Well, probably Tripp never had a trap club. That was probably part of it. You never got really into that because your community never had a trap club.
That's true.
Well, Delmont never did either, but Armour did.
Oh,
and
yeah.
My oldest, the brother next to me, my brother Tad, he introduced me to trap shooting. I was probably, 14, 13, somewhere's in there, 15. And I just fell in love with it. I did. I couldn't wait to go shoot, targets on Thursday nights. We only get to shoot 50 rounds. But boy, you can't imagine how I was so into that, and I just took it to the whole different level. I joined a Parkston Gun Club, Armor Gun Club, Geddes Gun Club, Mitchell Gun Club, and then we shot registered targets nationwide. So,
wow.
Yeah. Good thing gas was cheap back then, and so were shells and powder,
Yeah, no kidding. I don't think you can afford
and
to
targets.
Yeah.
No, we used to go shoot when I was really into it, 1,800 to 2,000 targets on a Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, that was just, yeah.
Can you articulate what it was about it that was so attractive to you? I just don't understand. I mean, I enjoy shooting clays from time to time, tuning up for the pheasant season and stuff, but man, I just don't understand how you got so crazy about it.
It's trying to achieve perfection. You can break a 99 all the time. I mean, once the guy reaches that level, if first you start out with you got to break a 25 straight. Oh my gosh. When I did that, I was like, oh man, okay, I can die and go to heaven now. I broke my 25 straight. Well, then there's a 50, then there's 75, then there's 100, then there's 200, and it just keeps going. The most I've ever done was 200 and I think 30 some straight. And you know what? As the world of trap shooters goes, that's okay. But I mean, there's guys that are out there, they don't miss a target, for hundreds and hundreds, maybe in the thousands of single targets. They don't miss them in the singles event, your 16-yard line target. But so I would say it's about perfection, always trying to see if you can break a perfect score, and
see, that makes perfect sense. Knowing what you've done since then with guns, making those beautiful gun stocks with Dakota. Tell us about that. How did you get from, being a rock drummer to doing gun stocks?
I never really knew what I was going to do in life. As a farm kid, you just kind of, you kind of muddle through life and you think, well, I guess this is what I'll do. Dad farmed, all my brothers farmed, so I guess I'll farm. But I got, drumming. I was in music when I was in a middle school and then high school. So it just kind of, there was a group. Well, I don't want to get into this too deep, but I mean, remember Janny Gross, Jan's band? Well, that's who I first started playing with. Well, that kind of was the start of that. And okay, so you try to do really good at drumming. You try to get all the notes right. And it's about trying to be perfect with something. And it's not that I ever was. Don't ever think too highly of me on that level. But you're always striving for it, see?
Sure.
And I think then Dad retired. Dad retired, and he got a duplicator, a stock duplicator. And so we started making like duplicated Model 12 stocks and 870 stocks, stuff that was fairly easy. And that's where I got started checkering. Checkering is where I got started. That's what got me hooked, was checkering. Mm-hmm. And then to checkering, you got, how do you do this? So you figure it out, and the first ones are a wreck, just a disaster, and you burn them. You don't want the world to find. You don't want the world to see those, and then so then it was stock making, refinishing, checkering, refinishing, and then some stock making. Like I said, Dad bought a duplicator, and we would do some minor stuff. And then I met a couple guys that come out to our farm pheasant hunting. One of them was Ward Dobler. And you know Ward?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ward told me, hey, he said, gosh, you're a pretty good checker. I work for Dakota Arms. We're hiring.
Uh-huh.
Well, the rest is history. I went out there and I applied. I got a job and I started stocking guns, learning the basics, starting at ground zero, level 1, maybe level 0. Okay.
Yeah.
And working my way all the way through that company until I eventually went on my own as an engraver.
At the time, Jesse, did you realize that you were working for one of the premier quality rifle manufacturers in the country?
I knew that they were high quality, but I had no idea who they were, really. It was just a place where you can go and make gun stocks, and they hired people, and I liked the work.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy to think that your first crack out of the barrel, you're working for Dakota Arms. That's pretty impressive.
Growing up, I never heard of them ever. Like I said, Dad had Winchesters, and that's about when my brothers had Brownings, and that was it.
Well, so when you started making these gun stocks and doing the Did you eventually do the entire stock, not just checkering it?
Oh yeah. Eventually, as time progressed and I got into Dakota and I learned that process, I was so intrigued by it. I was so interested in it that I bought a duplicator for myself. And over the years, I bought a hole drilling jig so I could drill holes properly instead of using a lathe through a gun stock. And I could make my own patterns and I could duplicate my own patterns. And it was such a feeling of total creativity, right? But yet staying within the realm of that perfection again, your wood to metal fit, the shape. You do a cheek piece or a teardrop. You want them carved perfectly. You don't want scratches on nothing. You want your sanding to be perfect, the pad to be perfect, the ebony to be perfect, and all this stuff. Your little sculpting, your edges. You want your edges to be very clean and crisp and sharp. And the finish, and just one thing adds to another. And then that's what kind of got me maybe advanced to want to do more, like you talked about, in engraving. And that was where Safari Club International introduced me to a few people. I got to go there with Dakota in Reno. Remember the Reno years?
Yes.
And I got to meet Barry Lee Hands. He was now the president of our Firearms Engravers Guild of America. He was like my second person that I actually met. Another guy that used to engrave for Dakota. Gosh, I can't remember his name right now. It slips my mind. So I would see engraving at Dakota from their engraver. I wished I could think of his name, but I can't right now. And that intrigued me. So going to safari clubs and seeing the world's finest people there. Wow. That was like, wow, I'm really nobody compared to what some of these people are doing with wood, with steel, with everything. It's just, how can somebody be so talented? Well, they just really work at it. And they work at it and they work at it. And that's all you do in your life. You pretty soon you don't hunt no more. You don't fish. You don't shoot trap. You just focus upon this stuff because you want to know how they do it. And it's never good enough. You and I have had this conversation in the past. It's just, there's always this drive for something better. Even the days when I would shoot trap and I would have a really good day or weekend, I would have a couple hundred straights under my belt that day, which did not happen all the time. Trust me. It was always a job to get there. But even if I break 100, I'd go, well, that's 100 straight. Yep. But boy, I just about missed number 73 and 94. Boy, I just about didn't get them. So even that's not good enough. See, you chipped one. Well, okay.
You got to powder every
but,
one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you start grading your breaks. Well, that was a break, but it wasn't a good break, It's funny how this all works, doesn't it? But it always, really it's all tied together, I think, with what you can do with your hands, right? Checkering, your hand-eye coordination, drumming, definitely hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, absolutely.
All this stuff, playing a guitar, engraving, it's all comes from your mind and then through your hands. It's an amazing thing to actually get to live that. It really is, and it's a lot that way for a writer. You think of words, you put words together, they come out on paper, and we get to enjoy stories. We get to go you come out of your fingers now, yes. And I get to enjoy going to Africa with Ron Spomer because I can read about it, see? And I can look at the photos, even though I may get there one day, maybe not, I don't know. But for now, I'm just focused upon my work and trying to just do really good at what I know. And there's always some hole to plug, as you're learning this stuff, because you never stop learning. It's always a challenge every single step along the way. I can never look at a job and say, well, that's going to be easy. No, it never is. Even if it's something small, like doing a gift of a pendant for somebody or a money clip. You still got this mindset. It's got to be perfect or really good, So, but that's the enthusiasm right there.
Yeah. Does that ever stress you out? It seems to me like it would just drive you crazy. You'd be constantly worried about getting it just perfect and get stressed. How do you worry about?
I always worry about gold falling out. You put
my teeth, maybe.
Yeah. So, so you work extra hard at trying to make sure the gold is anchored very well in steel. Because I can only imagine what my mind, I would probably get sick to my stomach if somebody says, hey, my color case receiver, the pheasant on it fell out. Oh, You can't fix that. The receiver's been color cased. They're hard as marbles at that point. You can't go back in. So you have to make sure along the way, not only that your work is pleasing to the eye, aesthetically, and from an engraver's point of view, is the flow is good, the proportions are proper, but on the other thing, that it is, how do I say it? Like, I know what's going on behind the sheetrock, right? Like the carpenter knows what's going on behind the sheetrock because he built it. He knows what's behind there. I know what's behind the gold inlays on my work. And, man, there's some guys in the world that are putting this raised multicolored gold on gold. And it's like, wow, I hope that stuff never falls out of there, even if I'm not doing the work. It's just that's what bothers me, I think, is that I want to be able to do it in a timely fashion, but you got to throw the clock out the window. You never know how long it's going to take. You can guess. You say, well, it's going to take me 200 hours,
How long would it take? Let's say a typical, let's go with a bolt action rifle. There's not a lot of steel compared to a shotgun sidewall or something. So how long would it take you to do an engraving with a little bit of gold inlay stuff on a bolt action?
Well, if it's just like basically gold wire and no gold inlaid animals and no scenes, say you get something that's 60, 70, 80% coverage, all depends, how much coverage you want. It can range from probably, by the time you blueprint the action, because I don't draw on the metal per se. I do with English scroll, but I do not with metal or with American scroll. I have a blueprint of the part. Matter of fact, I have you probably can't see this very well, but this is a transfer ready to cut for a Ruger single 6 made by, it's customized by Hamilton Bowen, but this is the gun that it's going on. Now, see all that gold in there? All the borders have gold. This is the current gun that I'm working on.
Yeah. Now, for the folks who are just, Jesse, for the folks who are not watching this on our YouTube channel and are just listening to the podcast, we'll explain that Jesse's holding up a revolver. It's a single 6, right? Ruger single 6.
Ruger single 6.
And he's engraving that. So, of course, what he has is it's in the white. It's raw steel. Yeah. That has to be finished later, but he's got to do the engraving while it's still in raw steel, right?
So I've been working on this gun now for, I can give you the exact day that I started on it. See, on 4/15. So April 15th, I started on, I think that's right. No. April 7th. Sorry, I was card number 2. April 7th, I started on that gun. And this is May 5th today? And so I've got.
How many hours a day?
Well, it all depends. I got things to do. Sometimes you got to answer the phone, or you got to run downtown, or you got to put gas in the wife's car or something, whatever the thing is. I have 94 hours into this gun so far. And I've put in a little over $7,000 worth of gold. Well, that's kind of misleading. Yeah, I mean, gold is put in by the inch. That's how I charge. Because I've got a gold buying license, and I buy gold, and I charge so much an inch to put it in. And there is, right now there's 75.5 inches of gold in this gun. 75 inches of gold in this gun. Now, you wouldn't think you could put that in here, but I'm telling you, it's there because I measured it all out. You got to keep close tabs of this because otherwise you don't want to lose money. So,
well, let me ask you this, because where we're going with this is I'm imagining most people listening to this are saying, why would somebody spend that much money just to embellish a functional firearm? I mean, you get this a lot, and I understand it. Just being a blue-collar guy, a farm kid, it's like, I want a gun I can afford that's going to work. Yep. It's got to be hardy and tough, and it's got to function. Yep. And all this fancy stuff, that's just for those rich guys kind of a thing. What is it about, now this is obviously going deep into the human psyche, that we want this kind of beauty and embellishment? Have you got a good handle on what it is in the human psyche that would spend that kind of time and money? And even from your perspective as a worker, obviously you make money, or you want to make money doing the work, but you obviously appreciate and enjoy it as well. So why do we put that lavish engraving on firearms, a functional tool?
I think it's just people that really appreciate art, and basically only people that are in the gun world do this. I mean, I couldn't imagine somebody who hasn't have a full blown passion to own firearms and then embellish them. I know that's kind of the wrong answer for you there. I don't really know why. I don't know. Maybe they have money to spend a lot of times. I think, gosh, and I'm always constantly about that with the customers. I'm going, well, we could do that, but boy, that's going to be a lot more money for that. Well, that's all right. Well, just we'll do it. And you treat them right. You're honest about your delivery times, and you do your absolute best to stay within your quotes. And they keep coming back to you for more and more. I mean, I don't have that many clients, really. I mean, I got the same group that keeps coming back. I don't know if that's really quite what you wanted to hear on that end of it, but I don't know, Ron. I don't know. They just love art. And maybe that's the passion that I have, that they just can't do it. Maybe they just can't be an engraver.
Yeah. Well, that definitely has to be that. It must be, there's more to it though, Jesse. There's this connection between the aesthetic of the art itself and whatever aesthetic appreciation one gets out of a fine firearm, one that's balanced, one that fits you. As a trap shooter, you'll know this. You don't just use any trap gun.
Right.
You've got to have one that's balanced and fits. And you hear of people have pet names for their guns because they fit them so well. And it's just like, it's my right arm. If I point in that general direction, it's going to hit it just because it's a part of me.
Yep.
And you want that then enhanced by something else that's extra special. I don't know. It must be like putting jewelry on a beautiful woman. They really don't need it. It's gilding the lily, but
that's a good way to put it, Ron. Yeah, absolutely. You just answered that question yourself, man. That's good advice for me, because, there will be times I have people ask me, why would anybody put $8,000 in a $600 pistol? Well, I guess it's none of their business. I mean, it's the person that owns the firearm. I mean, really, I don't have an Audi or a Mercedes. But people buy them every day. I have a Toyota pickup, and it gets me where I'm going. Maybe so. People have different interests. I would imagine. Yeah.
That's lucky for you that they have an interest in expensive engraved firearms.
Yes, and that's the other part of this whole entire journey of my life as a farm kid, and yours as well. You meet people along the way, and they help you. I can't tell you how many folks have encouraged me. And it comes right down to your own circle of friends, mainly my wife and my kids, who do see the struggle. And it's not always fun and games. Most of the time, half the time, it's a real battle. You and I have shared emails and texts, and say the battle is real. I go to bed and I can't sleep some nights. How am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? I have no idea. Every shape is different. You can't use the same design on every revolver. You got to use something different, right? Yeah. And so you got to try to think of this creativity. And I struggle with that desperately. And so I just settle with what I know, and I keep repeating my style, and that's okay. That's why my customers come to me. They like that style, and that's good for me. That's good enough for me. I'm not this guy or that guy, and they're not me,
So I am picking up that you've probably got an innate sense of the aesthetic, of balance. So when you're looking at a metal piece of a firearm, you take into account, you don't just say, well, this is going to have a buffalo on it and a little bit of leaf scroll or something on the sides. You consider the curvature of the piece, the balance of the piece, where the weight is, and how the engraving is going to enhance that or detract from it. And I mean, those are the creative things that must just be inherent in your mind or in your aesthetic.
They are, but they also, whenever I look at a firearm to engrave, if it's something different or unique, I think, how am I going to get my graver in there? So I can't do what I want to do there because I don't know. I don't think I can, reach that area in there. It's not all just, there's other things to consider, or In this case, on this Ruger, I mean, basically we had to send the cylinders back to Hamilton to draw them back a little bit. They were so incredibly hard to engrave. I could engrave them, but I really had a hard time with inlay. It took me 3 days to inlay 15 and a half inches of gold on a cylinder. Well, that's ridiculous because I kept breaking gravers, and that's where the frustration comes in at. You got to control that mental where you want to throw your stuff across the room. You know, I know that sounds maybe odd, but it really happens. And there's sometimes often, you know, the more you're sharpening gravers on those diamond laps, you're really not in the steel. So you're not really making chips, which means you're taking more time against the quote. And I don't worry about the quote so much. I don't mean to bore your customers with that, but it's all part of it. Yes, aesthetics. Yes, creativity. But yes, you also have to make a living. Maybe I'm not going to say you ain't going to make a killing, but you got to make a living, and you know you have to work through it all, and that's not a bad thing either. It helps you how to solve problems, which that's what we've been doing since we were kids on the farm, you know, solving problems.
Yeah. Well, that's understandable, Jesse. Let me ask you this though. You know, speaking of frustration, obviously some rifles or shotguns you work with would be more frustrating than the other. But I'm always wondering is it possible to engrave, and do people have engraved particularly small rifles, or are they always, you always think of the big African rifles on there, you know, 458s or 470 nitros, those get engraved. Probably because people who can afford those kinds of rifles to go hunting in Africa could afford the engraving. But what if a guy has a 22, like a beloved lever action 22, or even a slide action 22 from back in the early 20th century? Is it possible to engrave those?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, my first rifle engraving was a Model 90. That's a pump action 22 Winchester. Model 90, right? Or is it a Model
62?
No?
Yeah, there was
60.
a 62 pump action, yeah.
Okay, maybe that's what it was. 62. I'm sorry, it wasn't the Model 90. It was Model 62 Winchester. That was one of the first guns that I did. It was absolutely 22s. You know, there's a lot of companies now, or a few companies, making the nice, beautiful little falling block 22 long rifle. Man, they're fun. Yeah, you get to do nice little cool squirrels on them and rabbits and nice little fine scroll. Oh yeah, you bet. And then you can also engrave. I think the biggest gun I've ever engraved was a 600 Nitro Express.
Really?
In a falling block. Yeah. And that's challenging because there's a lot there to engrave, you know, and you got to kind of think bigger proportions. And you still want it to be balanced, like what we're talking about. And there's a budget to consider. Yeah. So yeah, you can engrave anything, but no matter what the size.
You probably didn't put a tree squirrel on that one, though, did you?
No. But there are stories floating around about some engravers that got a receiver mixed up, like say 2 Dakota Model 10s. He just got them mixed up, and he put an African scene on a 22 and a rabbit on like a 375. You know, I actually know that for a fact. It wasn't me, but it. So that's where you learn the term surface grinder. Yeah, surface grinder becomes your friend when you make mistakes. That's the only eraser we got.
How long have you been doing this engraving?
My very first engraving was on a practice plate was in 2011. So what, 11 years ago, roughly?
Wow, you've made some rapid
progress. Well, you know, I took a class from a master engraver in Missouri. Rick Cover was my mentor and my teacher. And I went down and I took a beginner's class with him. He says, wow, you're really pretty good at this. And then he found out that I checkered. Well, he said, well, that's why you have a good hand-eye coordination. But yeah, you know, and I think just the passion of it. I did all the books, and every moment I had in my day was drawing, was figuring out how to draw and learning proportions. And it never ends. Wow. You always have to consider proportions all the time. Like you can't put fine scroll on something huge. I mean, I suppose you could, but it wouldn't really be proper. You know, you wouldn't take a beautiful picture of a bird like you've taken so many great photos, and just sticky tack of 8x10 photo on your wall. You want to put a frame around it, right? There's things you got to do that are proper in that respect.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier the Engravers Guild, I think you called it?
Yep.
So it's obviously a guild is a collection of individuals who are engravers. It's not the Gunstock Makers Guild, it's the Engravers Guild. So they could be engraving other things.
Yep.
They could be engraving watches or knives or any metal object, right?
Yeah. And there are some incredible watch engravers on earth. They're like a jeweler. They are so incredibly talented. And man, they can get small. Oh my Lord, they can get small. Jeez. and not only small, but terrifically executed complex engravings.
Wow.
Small. And I just can't get over it. That's what blows me away.
And then you said you went to a beginner's class. So other engravers are offering to teach people how to do it. So obviously there's a demand out there. There cannot be that many engravers making a living at this, but you can make a living.
No, there's not. You can, yes. It helps for me. It helped for me because I had a lot of clients already as a stock maker.
Okay.
It really started because I worked for Dakota Arms and I got to go to safari clubs. That was the key for me. I would have never been exposed to that had I stayed on the farm back in the 80s and never left Douglas County. I would have never known any of this. That's why it's so important to get out, and see the world and experience other things that are good for you.
So
and that are creative. So
yeah. Did that your work as a drummer in those rock bands obviously took you around, right?
It did. Yep. I got to learn a lot about drums and drum heads and cymbals and all that kind of stuff, along with what encompasses being a full-time musician, making a living at that, which is not easy. If it was, everybody would do it. And it is a very destructive, it can be just a destructive way of life if you get into bad stuff. And I was so thankful to have good parents and had a good upbringing to stay away from all the garbage that's out there.
Oh, I bet
and it's there, as you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's, anybody who thinks of a rock drummer figures he's doing drugs all the time and he's just debauchery constantly. But you resisted that, huh?
Yeah. I did, because I had other things in mind. I didn't look a year in front of my face. I was trying to look down the road 4 or 5 years. And I still do that to this day. I'm 56, and I always remember a saying from Pablo Casals, who was a famous cellist. He was interviewed by, I think it was Time magazine, I believe. And they asked him that he was 90 years old when they interviewed him. He said, why are you still practicing six hours a day at age 90 plus performing? He says, well, because I think I'm beginning to get this stuff. And, so that gives me hope. If somebody like him has to do that, then this farm kid's got a long ways to go. So there's always that encouragement, right?
Yeah. That's crazy. Well, if someone out there were interested in this, how does somebody get started? Is it worth, say, a young person who really likes to work with his hands or her hands, can they consider going into something like this and making it a career?
Well, they can, but they got to totally shut off almost everything else in life.
Really?
I've known a lot of trap shooters, right, in my life. And a few of those guys were really, really good trap shooters, way better than I'll ever be or ever was. I don't really hardly shoot that much anymore, but they wanted to get into it. I said, well, that's fine. You can. I can show you, but if you really want to be good at it, you got to put that aside. You got to put that aside and that aside. Because it consumes you. It's all you think about. You have to be doing this work, whether it be with a pencil on paper or with your mind every day. And I mean every day. You don't really stop thinking about it. I get in a new gun and I put it on my little towel on my bench over there, and I look at it for a couple of weeks. I just look at it, turn it over, and I think, well, okay, I'll worry about that later, But your mind's always kind of working on stuff, say. But yes, they can go and you can go online and type in engraving schools, and there's a host of people out there that will introduce you to it. And most of these schools are really, really fun. They're extraordinarily fun. And I think for anybody that wants to get into it, don't look at it don't get into it as a business. Get into it as a hobby. I believe that you'll have so much more fun with it. Not that I'm not having fun, but as anything in life, my hobby became work. It was that way with checkering. It was that way with finishing and gunstock making and now engraving. But that's just the path that was chosen for me. And I'm thankful for that path because it's brought me so much joy. And anybody who wants to, they can definitely get into it. You can come see me, spend an afternoon with me. You know, nothing about me, but at least I can show you kind of what's involved in this stuff, what you got to have, what you got to kind of get started to. There are several companies out there that offer tools, that offer schools, show you how to use them. Mm-hmm. And also it's kind of like you build lifelong friends with this stuff. It's a lot like our hunting partners, right? I'm sure you've known people your entire life that you've hunted with, and that's your people. That's who you associate with mostly, and you feel comfortable around them. That's how the engraving world is when you find your group of people in that world that you really respect and that are not arrogant. Nobody likes anybody that's arrogant. They just don't. It's good to be just honest about your qualities. I'm not the greatest engraver that's ever been by any means. I struggle with my work every day. I always hope to do better. Always strive to do better. And isn't that all of life?
Yeah.
You know, we're not designed to sit down and do nothing.
Well, there's plenty of people who manage it one way or another, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey.
But I know there's a lot of questions. But
well, do you have any of your engraving candy that you could hold up for folks who are watching this on YouTube? Nothing.
Only thing I have is this. Yeah, it's as soon as it's done, it's got to be shipped off to get blued or case colored or whatever. So yeah, you got to get it out there and you got to invoice. So you get money, and then you got to get on the next job right away. That's where I'm at here. I have several guns in the house, but nothing is being worked on yet. They're all here, and nothing's being engraved except this revolver. Yeah. Uh-huh. I don't even have anything of my own. I don't have one gun of my own engraved. Wow. I have a standard Ruger Model 77 for my hunting rifle, and I got an Odd 6 and a Winchester Model 70. I have a couple Browning shotguns that I hunt with. I got a Remington 870 is my pheasant gun, that I've had since like 1979. So I'm as common as you.
You're going to put some gold engraved pheasants on that one. That's got to be your. Oh,
I don't pay nothing.
Yeah.
I don't
mercenary.
Put shoes. I know it. You know what though? Here's the key. At some point, I've been blessed with a very good wife. And she's got a good job, and I've got good customers. And we're not frugal people, but we're responsible people, and we live within our means. And someday, God willing, I can reach a point where I don't have to work for other people all the time. Then look out. Then I'm going to be putting out stuff of my own that I always wanted to do. And I'm looking forward to those days. I really, really am. I look forward to these days too. I won't dwell on the future that isn't here yet when I can enjoy what's happening right now. It's so important to get to know these people. It's wonderful. They're all good friends. My customers are good folks. We get together now and again, and it's not all about business by any means. Mm-hmm. You and I are prime examples of that. I mean, gosh, you're such a good guy to visit with. Whenever you're around, I feel so comfortable when you're in our shop or when we're out if you come to town, and things like that. It's all part of it. Yeah.
But then you and I, as we started this off talking about us growing up near each other, we've got such similar backgrounds. So it's really easy. And it's just like one of the old high school buddies of mine or something, even though you're younger by several years. But that is, and it is, but you're so easy to talk to because you're so honest and straightforward, and you're so enthusiastic about what you do that it's just so easy to be friends with you.
Well, it's what I want to relay to people of, don't pass up things in life that you think you might want to try, because you get a lot of joy out of it. And life should be full of joy. Life has its share of problems. We all know that. Yeah. We've all been bloodied in the nose a time or two with things in life. And this gives me such great joy to be able to talk to you about the fun that I have and the passion that I have for this stuff. It's very unique for me to be coming from a background like you and I did come from, where you don't want to have it too good. You know what that's all about. You don't want to be better than your neighbor because that's not how that works in a small community. So it's fun. And I so appreciate where I've come from and knowing folks like you and all the people that I've been enabled to engrave for. And to continually get up and work in my shop. It's small. It's just a small shop, little bitty space. But you don't need a computer and software to write a novel. You need a pencil and a piece of paper. Really?
Yeah, good point. and that gumption that you've got and sticking to it.
Yeah, that comes from my wife. My wife does just get down in the room and get to work. No, she don't say that. But encouragement when you do struggle and you don't really get much time off. The last vacation I had was last July.
You've got that problem too. What's a vacation really like? What do you do on a vacation?
For me, I like to go to the low country in South Carolina, outside of Charleston, a little place called Edisto Island. One of my closest friends is Mr. Ted Ford. And he has a beautiful place right on a tidal creek in a boat. And it's private and it's quiet and it's just so gorgeous there. And Ted and his wife Rosemary are such wonderful people. And I can really regroup there.
Mm-hmm.
I can go there and I can not think about this stuff and let my mind just do something else for a while, because this is all you got the same problem. If you're a writer and you got to make a living writing, most of your days are spent thinking on writing. I don't care who you are. That's how that works. And that's the only way you're going to make a living. You can't
it's hard
work
to shut
an 8
it
to
off.
5 job. Yeah. I mean, people say, you got to get on a schedule. Go to work at 7 and be done at 5. Well, kind of like farming. It don't work that way.
Yeah. You got that right.
Yeah.
Oh, how many times have you been up at midnight working while you're horizontal? Because you're thinking all the time.
Yep. And exactly. Yep. And then there's a whole host of other things that you got to do in life. I got to stop and mow my lawn, because I don't want to do that because I'm right in the middle of something here, but you got to, you have to do that. My wife makes me do that. Go take the dog for a walk, so that you can get out and clear the mind a little bit,
Yeah. Sure.
Things like that. We like to go for little drives up in the hills in the summertime,
Yeah.
My wife's a school teacher, so from September through the end of May, there's no going anyways.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. You get a lot of work done. So.
Yeah, boy, that's for sure. And I think one thing that perhaps not enough people understand is when you're working for yourself, you are a slave driver. Because you don't have the option of saying it's not a 9 to 5. You don't just, work is done. That's over there. Now I'm going to go enjoy my weekend with my friends and family. And that weekend, even if you don't physically do a project or write or engrave, you're thinking about it anyway. And I've got a deadline. And if you have a deadline and you haven't met it yet and it's on Monday, you're going to have to work on Saturday and probably Sunday.
You see, that's where you have it a lot rougher than I would have it because you do have those stringent deadlines. I allow myself, I figure in some buffer, it'll be spring, something like that before I won't get started till probably early fall, give yourself that, but you got to have these deadlines. And so I appreciate that you understand all this stuff and allow people like us to somehow, if we can, relate that to other folks. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, and then I think you especially get to take satisfaction in knowing that the work that you've done is not just going to be cast off so many people do things that you just use it and it's used up and you pump the gas and you change the tire and then the next week you change somebody else's tire and that's thrown away. The things that you produce are going to be around for a long time, and they're going to be appreciated for a lot longer than most things in our culture these days. Throwaway culture. You're making things of permanence. I mean, you probably know some engraved firearms from hundreds of years ago.
Oh, yeah. When I got to go to Germany the first time in 2014, my good friend Hendrik Fruhauf is one of the best engravers in all of Germany. And I'm so thankful that he's my friend because we got to go to the Coburg Castle in Germany where there's like 1,000 or 1,200 guns from the 1400s, the 1500s, 1600s, and they're beautifully done. You can't believe what they've done to these guns 400 or 500 years ago. Yes, you're exactly right. It's quite something. It lasts for a long time, forever, actually.
Yeah.
But
that's fascinating.
Yeah. Yep, very interesting.
Well, listen, Jesse, we're probably going to have to ring off here, but I want to thank you for what you do and for your enthusiasm and your willingness to share it with so many of us. Yeah. Folks, if you get a chance to check out engraving, do you have a website, Jesse? Or
I do.
It's people can contact you?
Yep. It's Black Hills Gunstocks and engraving.com, I think. I have to look at my business card now.
Yeah. Well, we'll look it up and we'll put the words on the screen here for people who see this on YouTube. And
Yep.
But if you get a chance, folks, check out his website and see some of his work, the examples of some of his engraving. And even if you're one of the pragmatic people like me who said, "Oh, I'll never buy anything that's engraved because it's fluff and stuff, and I can't afford it anyway." But you come to a place in life where you maybe have saved up some money and you really have a firearm that you have appreciated. Maybe it was your first. Maybe it was your dad's or your grandpa's even, and it becomes this family heirloom, and you think, this thing is so special that I want to honor it and our family heritage and our hunting heritage by having it embellished by someone like Jesse, whether it's putting a really fancy new stock on it or getting a little bit of engraving with a little gold inlay, maybe that a squirrel because that was the first animal you took, or a pheasant flying because that was the first bird you ever shot. This is what I think drives us to want to see our firearms embellished. And with artists out there like Jesse to do the work for us, it's just really tempting. I think I'm going to have to go through the gun vault here and find something for you.
Well, I don't have a single gun engraved for myself, not one. So
yeah.
But that's okay.
I hope. I hope you rectify that.
I want to thank you, Ron, for always being my friend all these years, these recent years, and that you've always basically tooted my horn, you might say, with the public. Wow. And I cherish our friendship and these little times like this. And I really, really enjoy it when you just stop in on a whim, have a cup of coffee, visit, get caught up. That's always fun stuff too.
Yeah. We're about due for that too. So you better get out this way but I'll try to get back over Sturgis way and visit you again as soon as I can. But
you bet. Good luck in Africa here. That's coming up in September, is it?
Yep. September we'll be over there doing it again. I can't get enough of that place. It's pretty special, and you've got to go along one of these years.
I will. You just got to live longer.
Right. Take your vitamins. Quit smoking. Stop drinking.
Oh well, it's all in fun, isn't it? But I wish the best for you over there, and maybe you have a good hunt, a great experience with lots of memories for your heart to look back on.
Thanks so much, Jesse.
You bet.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, that is Jesse Kaufman, good old South Dakota boy. And if you really want to see what a fine artist can do with a firearm, check him out because it is quite an eye-opener. And we thank Jesse for joining us on Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast. And we invite you to subscribe to this channel, as well as our other YouTube channel, Ron Spomer Outdoors, where we cover guns and ammo and ballistics and more technical things like that. Also, you can visit our website, ronspomeroutdoors.com, and on there is rsotv.com, a subscription service on which we have more in-depth reporting on firearms and hand loading and hunting. So we're just trying to put as much information out there as we can that we've picked up and learned over the years, and hoping that you can continue sharing with us with your comments, because you folks know so many things that I don't, and it helps me improve my education so that we can all share and improve in all aspects of our lives, not just the hunting and the guns, but as you've seen here with Jesse, just our enthusiasm and appreciation of life. So this is Ron Spomer. Thanks for listening. Hunt honest and shoot straight.